The Wall Street Journal had a report that the Department of Justice is now investigating the NFL. And the initial report from the Wall Street Journal was light on specifics, but there was a supposition it had something to do with antitrust, which isn't a bad assumption when you consider the broader political climate, because you've got the FCC talking about the NFL jeopardizing its antitrust exemption. You've got members of Congress from both sides of the aisle talking about the NFL and its antitrust exemption. Later in the day, ABC News, in an item that I found on the ESPN website, which is now 10% owned by the NFL. So awkward.
The Department of Justice just opened an investigation into the National Football League. Not a warning, not a congressional hearing, not a strongly worded letter from a senator trying to score political points. A federal investigation into the most powerful sports league on the planet. And legal experts are now saying the NFL has been sitting on an antitrust violation hiding in plain sight for nearly 40 years, and the league has known about it the entire time. This is not a story about a bad call on a Thursday night game. This is not about a contract dispute or a player grievance. This is about the legal foundation the entire NFL is built on, and whether that foundation is about to crack in a way that changes professional football forever. But before we break down exactly what the DOJ is investigating, we need to talk about the specific moment nearly 4 decades ago when the NFL quietly crossed a legal line it was never supposed to cross. Because that moment is at the center of everything happening right now, and once you understand it, you will never watch an NFL broadcast the same way again. Plus, we are going to expose the jaw-dropping conflict of interest that has ESPN reporting on a league investigation of the very organization that partially owns ESPN. And we will get to the specific dollar amount the NFL is trying to extract from its broadcast partners right now that may have been the final trigger that brought the federal government into this fight. Stay locked in, because this story affects every single fan of the sport. Here is the foundation, and you need to understand the history to understand why this investigation matters as much as it does. In 1961, the NFL was a young league still fighting for legitimacy in the American sports landscape. Professional football was viewed by much of the country as somewhere between college football and pure entertainment, not yet the dominant cultural force it would eventually become. And the NFL's leadership understood that the key to changing that was television money. Specifically, the ability to pool all 32 teams' broadcast rights together, sell them as a single package, and split that revenue equally across every franchise regardless of market size. The problem? That kind of arrangement, multiple separate businesses agreeing to sell their product collectively rather than competing individually, is textbook anti-competitive behavior under United States antitrust law. Without a special exemption, it would have been illegal from day one. So Congress gave the NFL exactly that. The Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961 created a specific antitrust exemption allowing the league to pool and sell its broadcast rights as a single unit. It was the legislative gift that built modern professional football, and the New York Giants deserve significant historical credit for agreeing to share their revenue equally with every other franchise even when they were the most popular team in the league and stood to lose money by doing so. That selfless decision created the competitive parity that makes the NFL what it is today. Every team gets an equal cut. The Green Bay Packers and the New York Jets split the same national television revenue as the Dallas Cowboys and the New England Patriots. That financial architecture is the reason small market teams can compete. That is the reason the NFL has the most balanced and compelling regular season in professional sports. And it gets more complicated from there. The exemption was not a blank check. It came with specific conditions. The NFL could pool and sell its rights collectively, but only to broadcast networks. The old-school free television model. Rabbit ears. Over-the-air signals. The federal government owned the airwaves, licensed them to the networks, and those networks made the games available to anyone with a television set at no charge. That was the deal. Give the league its exemption in exchange for keeping the games free and accessible to every American. That arrangement held for 26 years. Now here is where it gets really interesting.
Congress waves a magic wand and gives the NFL an exemption from the antitrust laws. Why does the NFL need the antitrust laws? Because at the end of the day, the way they structured the league, it's all different businesses. They're all independent businesses that work together under a trade association known as the National Football League. That's a key fact, and that is undeniable at this point. It is not one business. It is At the time, however many teams there were, 12, 14, 16, I don't know. But they all came together, and they got this exemption for the purposes of their broadcast rights. And they needed it because that was the key to revenue sharing.
In 1987, the NFL did something that legal experts say crossed the line the 1961 exemption was specifically designed not to cross. They carved off a portion of their total game package and sold it to ESPN, a cable company, a subscription service, a platform where viewers had to pay to watch games that had previously been available on free over-the-air television. That single transaction, quiet, relatively small at the time, barely noticed in the broader context of the league's growing television dominance, was the moment the NFL technically violated the terms of its own antitrust exemption. Not in a way that immediately drew legal action, not in a way that caused immediate alarm, but in a way that created a legal vulnerability that has been sitting in the law books ever since, waiting for the right political moment and the right government to decide it was worth pursuing. In 1994, Sunday Ticket moved to DirecTV, another paid platform, another step beyond what the exemption actually covered. And then came streaming, Amazon Prime Video, Peacock, Netflix, billion-dollar platforms where viewers pay monthly subscription fees to access content that was once protected as a free public good under the terms of the 1961 deal. Every one of those deals was a potential antitrust violation. The NFL signed all of them anyway. And for nearly 4 decades, no administration felt strongly enough about the issue to do anything about it. Until now. Here is why the DOJ is moving on this story right now. And here is where the conversation gets genuinely explosive for any fan who thinks this investigation is just political noise that will eventually go away. The NFL is currently in the middle of renegotiating its broadcast deals. And the terms it is demanding from its partners are staggering. CBS, which currently pays approximately $2.1 billion per year for its NFL package, is reportedly being asked to increase that commitment to $3 billion per year. Not at the end of the current deal. Now, on an existing contract that has not expired. The NFL is going back to partners who already have signed agreements and demanding they pay more money mid-contract, using the threat of moving games to streaming competitors as leverage. That is not how contract law normally works. That is not how media rights negotiations normally function. And the legal experts paying attention to this situation are pointing out that the leverage the NFL is using to extract those additional billions, the ability to threaten networks with the loss of games to streaming platforms, is leverage that only exists because of the anti-competitive structure the 1961 exemption was supposed to regulate. In other words, the NFL is using an exemption designed to protect consumers and ensure free access to games as a weapon to extract more money from broadcast partners by threatening to move games behind paywalls. That is the exact opposite of what the exemption was created to accomplish. And the Department of Justice has apparently decided it has seen enough. Now, let us talk about the conflict of interest that makes this entire story even more uncomfortable than it already is. ESPN is 10% owned by the NFL. The same ESPN that is reporting on the DOJ investigation of the NFL. The same ESPN that will carry NFL games next season and the season after that. The same ESPN whose broadcast deal is currently being renegotiated by the league that owns a piece of it. Think about what that means for the information you receive about this story. ESPN has a direct financial relationship with the subject of the investigation it is covering. The network's leadership has to weigh every editorial decision about how aggressively to pursue this story against the reality that the league they are reporting on is a stakeholder in their company. That is not a theoretical conflict of interest. That is a direct and active conflict of interest playing out in real time on a story with enormous implications for the future of the sport. And it is the same dynamic that allows the NFL to use one of the country's most powerful sports media platforms as a messaging vehicle rather than an independent watchdog, which brings us back to the fundamental question at the center of this entire DOJ investigation. Who does the NFL answer to? For 60 years, the answer has been essentially nobody. The antitrust exemption, combined with the league's dominance of the American sports landscape, its political relationships, its media partnerships, and its economic weight, has made the NFL one of the most untouchable institutions in the country. Federal investigations of the league have been talked about for years. Congressional hearings have produced nothing but theater. The league has navigated every political threat, absorbed every legal challenge, and emerged from every crisis stronger and more profitable than before. But the combination of factors in 2026 is genuinely different. The FCC has raised questions about the antitrust exemption. Members of Congress from both political parties have expressed interest in revisiting the 1961 deal. The DOJ investigation is now confirmed and active. And the specific legal argument at the center of this probe, that the NFL violated its own exemption nearly 40 years ago and has been operating in violation of it ever since, is not a complicated or ambiguous legal theory. It is a straightforward reading of what the exemption actually says versus what the league has actually done. The NFL has been playing with fire for 4 decades. The question is whether this is the moment the fire finally gets big enough to demand a real response, or whether the league's political connections, legal resources, and economic power allow it to once again walk away from accountability and keep printing money. Here is what this means for you as a fan. If the DOJ investigation gains real traction, the most likely outcome is not that the NFL gets shut down or dismantled. The most likely outcome is a renegotiation of the terms under which the league operates, potentially forcing more games back onto free over-the-air television, limiting or eliminating the streaming deals that have been moving marquee games behind paywalls, and restructuring the broadcast rights landscape in a way that prioritizes consumer access over league revenue maximization. That would be a massive shift. It would cost the NFL billions in annual revenue. It would fundamentally change the business model that has made this league the most profitable sports organization in human history. And it would represent the first meaningful check on NFL power that the league has faced in its entire modern era. Whether you think the NFL deserves that check or whether you think this investigation is purely political, the legal foundation of the argument is solid, the timing is real, and the consequences could reshape professional football in ways nobody inside or outside the sport has fully prepared for. Here is the bottom line. The DOJ has opened a formal investigation into the NFL. The legal violation at the center of that investigation has been hiding in plain sight since 1987. The league has known about the vulnerability for decades and kept expanding its streaming and cable deals anyway. And now the political and legal stars have aligned in a way that finally makes pursuing this worth somebody's time and resources. My prediction, this investigation does not destroy the NFL, but forces a significant restructuring of broadcast rights over the next 3 to 5 years. More games return to free television. Streaming deals get limited or restructured. And the NFL's ability to use its antitrust exemption as unlimited leverage over broadcast partners gets legally constrained for the first time in 60 years. If you want to follow this story as it develops, and is going to develop fast, hit that subscribe button right now. And drop a comment below. Do you think the DOJ investigation is legitimate legal accountability, or just another example of the government using sports as a political football? This is Gridiron Insights. We'll see you in the next one.